Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Mike Roberts, founder and CEO of both SpyFu and RivalFlow. Today I'm going to walk you through this brand new tool. If you're here, this is, you're on the ground floor, and so I'm going to tell you how this thing works. So, little backstory, before there was SpyFu, there was no way to like type in a website and see every keyword that it ranks on Google or advertises on. Before that, you had to do like basically guess and check. You type in a keyword and see if you showed up there, right? So that's kind of the state of where we are today with ChatGPT. If you want to know what ChatGPT thinks about your brand, you have to like guess a question and see if it comes back and talks about you. So what we did is what we did with SpyFu in the early days. We did a whole bunch of searches. So we asked ChatGPT 250 million questions. And what we did is we said, well, let's make it so that you can just put in your brand and see which questions you're mentioned in, right? So this is really powerful. And what it allows you to do is figure out how ChatGPT is talking about your business. And the ultimate goal is to figure out how to get it to recommend your business, right? So step one is find out how it's already talking about you. Then we're going to compare that to your competition, and then we're going to close the gaps. And that closing the gaps part is like the part that you might be thinking, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to walk you through a few different ways that can happen. And it's actually pretty straightforward, but there's a little bit of decision making that goes on, kind of like with SpyFu. So let's start out with a really straightforward brand. We're going to go with Red Bull. Something everybody can kind of understand. You don't want to put quotes around this or, whatever. So here, when we're looking at our brand, we want to see how, what questions people are asking and then how ChatGPT is responding. So here's an important one, right? Like, how is ChatGPT responding when somebody asks, is Red Bull bad for you, right? That's kind of an interesting one. So we want to look through here and see if there's any things that we would be concerned about, right? And as you scroll through this, you can understand how you'd want to know about this kind of thing about your brand. Like, does Red Bull have alcohol? Here's one that's pretty crazy, a little NSFW or something, or just like, okay, that's urban legendy, and it's nice that that ChatGPT is appropriately clearing that up for us. But now let's have a look at how ChatGPT might be talking about our competitor. So our competitor in this case is going to be Monster Energy. So obviously we do this basic search here, and you're going to see similar things to like what we saw with when we ran Red Bull. So how much caffeine? Probably something along the lines of does it have alcohol? There we go. So similar concerns, but let's see where we overlap with them. Like, what questions are we both mentioned? So I would like to know that, right? So we do this. And then these are going to show us areas where we're both overlapping, right? So, and maybe what we want to do is actually remove these brands from the question itself. Just, so question, these are kind of the advanced search operators, right? Red Bull, and, oops, I want that to be a minus. I want to not have the questions have the word Red Bull or the word Monster in it. That ought to do. We'll probably wind up having to do like remove the space of Red Bull if we wanted to be perfect, but this will probably get us pretty good. So here we are. We're looking at this. How are we talking? Okay, so how much caffeine in energy drinks, right? Okay, so this is where we're getting talked about at the same time, right? So now let's see where Monster's getting talked about. Let's say we're Red Bull. Where's Monster getting talked about and we're not? There's going to be a whole bunch of these. This is a lifestyle brand. It's kind of hard to like parse through in a way, right? Like, your brand is probably not quite this massive. Mine isn't. But here we are. We're looking at our Monster's bad for you. This is something, well, okay, of course. Hold up. Let's get rid of Monsters. Oops. Okay, here we go. All right. So we're talking about quite a few of the sponsors. Maybe we can get out of this thing where we got sponsors in here. So here we go. So this is a case where Monster is getting talked about as being one of the more dangerous energy drinks. That would be a bad thing for them, but for me as Red Bull, not that big of a deal. But if I were Monster, that would be pretty frustrating. So as I go through this, I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, like it's a pretty big area, so I'm going to start having to slice this, right? So maybe what I care about is like this sort of subset of things where we're talking about Red Bull and vodka. I value the whole vodka thing quite a bit. It's a pretty big part of our business, maybe a secret part of our business or whatever. Not so secret, but you know what I mean? Like maybe it's a big thing. I want to make sure that's not getting eaten into, that we still own the vodka, the Red Bull and vodka space, or the energy drink and vodka thing, right? So everything seems fine except for this cotton candy thing here. We can't have Monster beating us on cotton candy. So in this case, right, I want to make sure that that I've got some content someplace, and this may not be, the way the LLMs work, it may not be that I put like something on my blog. Maybe that actually isn't something as a brand that I am able to do. But we would want to make sure that goes someplace in maybe like Reddit or Quora, or I could do some sponsored blog posts. Someplace on the internet, I need to be attaching my brand to this cotton candy thing, just to make sure. Okay, so this is a bit of a hypothetical example. I wanted to start out with really accessible, kind of a consumer brand. But let's jump over. But in order to do this, I have it's like we can't necessarily create content sort of B2B content. So I'm gonna jump over to something that's a little bit more content driven, so that we can talk about what real actions that all of us can take when we find these gaps between us and our competitors. This is more this Red Bull versus vodka, Red Bull versus energy, Monster Energy, vodka thing is more of a hook for us. But let's go into something more boring, but also actionable. Okay, so my relatively boring example, but fun for me in a weird way, okay, and maybe fun for you, is search engine land versus search engine journal. Now, what I'm showing right now is where they both overlap, right? So we're looking at things where they're both authoritative on 298 results, last Google update. How can I learn about SEO? So they're basically showing up in these same answers on these ones, right? But let's see where search engine land shows up, but search engine journal doesn't. And from search engine journal's perspective, this would be opportunities to improve, to add to their content, possibly, right? So some of these things are how to do SEO, but here's one that's a little bit more, because these are pretty broad. Now, I don't think that there's anything super actionable about these top things that they can do, because frankly, they probably do have a lot of content about how to do SEO, and so there may be some randomness to this. In fact, we did see that what is the latest Google update is something that both things rank on or show up in the results. But what about this one? Who is the father of SEO? Now, maybe not like the biggest deal to show up on, but everything kind of builds, right? It's like building your authority and like causing ChatGPT to mention you more often. Is a function of just sort of building your overall, the sort of vectors inside of the LLM. All right, so let's have a look at what the search results look like for the father of SEO for search engine land versus search engine journal. Okay, so here's the results of who is the quote father of SEO on the site searchengineland.com, and what we wind up with is actually quite a few results. And ultimately, it's sort of landing on this conclusion that probably Bruce Clay is the father of SEO, or it brands himself as the father of SEO, and so there we go. Now let's have a look at Search Engine Journal. Okay, so Search Engine Journal has a couple of results, but you'll notice. So it's a couple of results, and the first one actually does mention Bruce Clay, but you'll notice that none of these results are from like the last 3 years, right? Whereas all of these results from Search Engine Land are recent, right? 2023, 2024, right? So much more recent results from Search Engine Land. From Search Engine Land. Interestingly, this top result here didn't come back the first time I ran the search. So it's like, I'm not quite sure how that happened, but this was the only result that I got the first time I ran this identical search. So it's kind of interesting. But let's have a look at like this recent result, because this one here is from 2013. So that's a pretty long time away, long time ago. Let's have a look on here and see where it talks about this father of SEO. So it's father of SEO best practices. That's what it's referencing, Brett tab key, and that's what originally showed up in my results. So let's talk about what we could do here. There's a couple of options. One kind of interesting way of solving this problem or doing this would be to just take what we have here, copy it, right? And I'm going to say, go to Claude and say, can you make this better? And you can use whatever prompt you want. Make this a little bit better than what I currently have here. And then run that. You could then take this and then like hypothetically build a piece of existing content out of this. And it is, let me move my face out of the way here. It's not too bad. Like honestly, for what it is, for what you're competing against or for what's there, this isn't terrible. You could add your own insights. You could call yourself the Father of SEO. You could, whatever you want to do. You could add this to the existing content, right? So you could go in here, probably not here. You could make it, they could make it a page that actually does just address this exact question to cause themselves to be more authoritative on this thing that they either would want to be authoritative on or not. Certainly can't hurt, right? Certainly can't hurt making a piece of content about who is the Father of SEO. It's obviously something that people ask reasonably frequently. So here we go. So now it talks about Search Engine Journal and the founder and all this stuff. And so the key here is the thing that's important is you're generating this content. You could, if your search engine journal, you could put this in your own on your own site, or you can put it anywhere you want, right? It just needs to be on the internet. It could be a guest blog, like I said. It could be something that shows up. You could pose the question in Quora. You could put it into Reddit, whatever. You know, I'm not like necessarily. You could find where somebody's asking the question and actually directly answer it there. That's like even the best case scenario, right? So this is like ultimately what needs to happen is that that your brand needs to be associated with this question and the content that surrounds the question, right? ChatGPT needs to think to itself, what's the most likely thing that I need? Like, what's the phrase that comes next, you know, if I'm autocomplete like on steroids, right? What do I need to do next? What's the next word that I need to put in here, right? So you can put this on your own blog or you can put it in your any old place, right? The higher the authority, the better. Post it on Fortune magazine, right? You do whatever you need to do. So another somewhat more nuanced way to go about this is actually exactly how RivalFlow actually works. We read your competitors' content, we read your content, and we find what questions are they answering that you're not, and what questions are they answering more thoroughly than you are. So we're kind of doing this whole, authority hacking thing at scale with RivalFlow. But if you already know the page that you want to optimize, like RivalFlow's making these recommendations for us, right? This is Search Engine Journal. And I'm pretending that I'm Search Engine Journal, and Search Engine Journal is getting recommended. Okay, this is the article. This is the competitor that's beating you. What you want to do is beat them at what they're doing. Answer the questions more thoroughly than they are, and you will wind up outranking them. And by the way, this process works beautifully for SEO, but it'll also work just as well for improving your sort of mentions in LLMs. And really what we're talking about is future LLMs, right? Like it's going to be GPT-5 or it's going to be the next model, the next version of every LLM that comes out that ultimately uses all of the internet, right? To actually improve, to make the to answer the questions, right? That's what's going on. And we're not talking about just ChatGPT. We're talking about Google AI overviews. We're talking about Claude, everything. All the things that are powered by LLMs are ultimately going to be selling your business, are going to be recommending your brand and your products. Let's have a look and see how RivalFlow, how we can actually put the URL we want to put in, the page that you want into RivalFlow so that you can close the gaps. Okay, so I'm going to go over to this area in RivalFlow. Now, this is a relatively small screen size because SpyGPT works great in this form factor, but RivalFlow needs a little bit more space. So everything's kind of condensed, but this actually says pick a page in the normal in the normal user interface, right? So this little guy right here is says pick a page. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to take that URL that I got over here from Search Engine Journal, and I'm going to paste it right in here, and then I'm going to choose this page, and it's going to find a competitor for me. But I don't want to use this competitor, so I'm going to move my head, and I'm going to change my size a little bit. We're going to change the competitor content, and we're going to choose that search engine land page, right? This is the one. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to build a writing project based on this one. It finished. So let's go have a look and see what we see. So 32 questions that you don't answer on this page relative to the competitor, right? And so as I was going through here, what I actually expected to see was something along the lines of like, who is Bruce Clay? And who's the father of SEO or something like that? Who's the father of SEO? So it turns out that both of these articles actually adequately mention this, right? So the interesting thing is, it may not be the fact that it's like not mentioning the Bruce Clay as the father of SEO. Maybe, I mean, realistically, these are much more valuable questions to answer, right? To close the gap with your competitor. So what RivalFlow does is it looks at your competitor's page and it says what questions are they answering that you're not. So there's 32 of them in order of importance. So how can a website survive and thrive following a Google Core update? Remember, these are some of the things that we saw where Search Engine Land was beating Search Engine Journal. So it's actually doing a better job of showing you where to close the gap. Obviously, RivalFlow will show you right where to put that content right on the page. It even shows you where on the page to put it. So right underneath here would be the proper place. And so this is like built to just copy and paste right into your content. It flows perfectly. So that's how you can use RivalFlow to really close those gaps on both the SEO side and in the LLM optimization side, right? Like it's not just about answering those questions, one at a time and adding them to your content. For LLMs, you can add those all over the place, guest blog with them, post them on social media, etc. But on the SEO side, you're basically doing all the good things, creating more helpful content by answering these questions, and by putting it on your blog or on your site, you're going to improve the way that LLMs, ChatGPT, and Google AI Google AI overviews are going to talk about you from now and going into the future. If you've got a second, I do have one more way that you can use SpyGPT, to kind of take that next action, right? We're talking about that core idea of how to get ChatGPT to recommend your business, and ultimately, how do we close those gaps, right? We compare ourselves to our competitors and ultimately close the gaps. So let me show you one more trick, right? So this is about Will Reynolds' company, Seer Interactive. One thing that I noticed when I was looking at this was that Seer Interactive is a company that's based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's founded by Will Reynolds, and so you'd expect them to show up as some of the best SEO folks, SEO consultants in Philadelphia, and that is what happens. But if you go a little bit deeper into the results, you'll find that they also show up in places like London and Houston and Ohio, and so in the Midwest. So why is that? How did that happen? So let's have a look. I think that this is because Will Reynolds is a speaker and he travels all over the place. And so as a consequence of his keynote speaking in places like, let's see, probably Rotterdam, Nashville, Berlin, Miami, Dallas, Fort Worth, Toronto, right? Because he speaks, he's on the speaker circuit, he gets his brand, Seer Interactive, gets mentioned when we look for, who are the best SEO agencies in Ohio. So just a quick hack, or, think about how this applies to your business. If you are a local business, how do you want to only have people reach out to you that are local? Or if you're a digital agency, you can do SEO services. You may be based in Phoenix, Arizona, but you can do SEO services in Raleigh, North Carolina. No problem, right? So you ultimately want to show up on some of these local searches, but how does that work for your business, right? And how do these things apply overall? So there's a little bit of thinking and a little bit of kind of taking the best of what's working for others and doubling down on it, learning from it yourself. So a bit of that whole SpyFu research dynamic, but also a bit of that Well, here's the SEO workflow that's going to do no harm for you of RivalFlow. So I hope this helps. I hope it kind of ties everything together for you so you can understand how SpyGPT and SpyFu and RivalFlow all work together in this sort of AI SEO universe that we're now living in. All right, have a great one.
Like and subscribe to videos from SpyFu. Like and subscribe. SpyFu is on YouTube.